be seated, everyone? Good afternoon. Welcome to Fuqua's 2026 Daytime MBA and Accelerated Daytime MBA Commencement Ceremony, a day we've long awaited. I'm Mary Frances Luce, Dean of the Fuqua School of Business. Today, I have the distinct pleasure and honor of welcoming the families, friends, and loved ones who have gathered here from around the globe to celebrate our honored guests, the Fuqua class of 2026. This moment marks a dream realized, a dream that may have begun as a seed in your 25 Random Things essay. Along the way, you were pushed in ways that were sometimes grueling and other times deeply rewarding, probably sometimes both. And in pursuit of this dream, you have changed the trajectory of your life. We are enormously proud to call you our graduates. And you didn't do it alone. At Fuqua, we believe in the power of teams. So in that spirit, let's take a moment to acknowledge those who helped you arrive here. First, to your family and friends for being the wind in your sails, giving you encouragement in challenging moments, and then sharing the joy of your many accomplishments. Graduates, please give your family and friends a hand. And again, thank you to all of the family and friends who are here with us today to celebrate, and the others watching online. To Fuqua's brilliant, exceptional faculty for equipping you with the knowledge, perspective, and confidence to lead today, tomorrow, and as the unforeseeable future evolves. Thank you, faculty. To Fuqua's remarkably wise and dedicated staff, so many of whom are here today helping out, for making your day-to-day possible, and for envisioning how to support your journey from well before you set foot on Duke's campus to well after you wish us farewell. Thank you to our staff. And finally, to you, our graduates, for supporting each other every step of the way. Your camaraderie, your collaboration, and your care for each other gives meaning to Team Fuqua. Thank you, graduates. All right. Thank you to everyone who made today possible. This ceremony celebrates our graduates, both what you have accomplished and who you have become. It marks the end of your studies and the beginning of your next chapter as a Fuqua graduate. As you step into the world beyond Duke, I want to leave you with this. You are ready. You leave Fuqua with the knowledge, tools, judgment, and teammates that you need to be a leader of consequence. You will contribute to your teams, your organizations, and global society by leveraging not only what you have learned here, but importantly, the person you have become by investing in yourself. And now, as we begin our celebration, we'll hear from those who have walked that path right next to you along the way. Please welcome your MBAA co-presidents, Ben Peace and Gabby Sims.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. Let's tone it down a bit. There's families here. My fellow classmates, as this chapter of our Duke journey comes to a close, I want to begin by thanking those who made it possible for me to be here. Of course, my family, shout out, those in attendance, and those who couldn't make it. But most importantly, I want to thank my wife, Katie. Shout out again, up there. You've supported me as I took a gamble on my career and in the pursuit of knowledge and opportunity. You agreed to uproot your life to allow me to establish new roots in mine. For that, I want to thank you for your sacrifices you made and always supporting me. I also want to thank my C-Lead, Kartik, Danielle, Ash, Ogechi, Kato, and Tolu Alashe. Thank you all. You were my first friends at Fuqua. You not only shared your perspectives on life and goals, but you also helped me better understand who I am and the person I want to be as a colleague and as a leader. To the graduating class of 2026, congratulations on this achievement. It's only fitting that we celebrate today in the house Coach K built. Behind you hang 5 championship banners representing teams that met the moment and delivered. But Duke has also had teams in recent years that were just as talented, if not more. Teams that were ranked as the top in the nation, full of NBA prospects, and, in my opinion, 2 rookies of the year. And yet, they still came up short. Not because they lacked ability, they had it. They came up short because talent and expectations don't guarantee results. If you look around this room, this is a high potential group. We already knew this. That's why we were selected to join the Fuqua class of 2026. But potential isn't what people measure on you after today. Out there, no one cares what you were capable of. They only care about what you actually do. What you build, how you treat people, what you follow through on, and how you perform when things are uncertain and difficult. So, as you reflect on these last 2 years, treat them as a starting point, not as a conclusion. Serving as your elected representative alongside Gabby, shout out, was a life-changing opportunity that I truly enjoyed. It allowed me to support this community through listening and advocacy, and to learn from all of you in the process. In the spirit of Team Fuqua, I want to share 5 things I've learned during my time as co-president. For our guest today, Fuqua, and as Mary Fran has mentioned, has a requirement that applicants write an essay outlining 25 random facts about themselves. Consider this a shorter version. First, cherish your hair. This is, of course, a metaphor. Enjoy the small, fleeting nuances of life. They pass more quickly than you expect. Second, develop a genuine curiosity for what excites others. One of the most impactful pieces of advice I heard this past year was to focus on building better habits. Strive to be 1% better every day. That advice comes from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I want to be clear, I have not read it. But Steve Misuraca has read it. And that was good enough for me. Third, having a mentor is important, but friendship is more important in my opinion. You will find yourself surrounded by incredibly smart and talented people. Some in positions you aspire to be. Learn from them. But value the people who show up not when you need them or when you're looking for them. The people who give you guidance when you need it the most. Fourth, there is no age requirement for being a good friend. The people who matter the most are the ones who can see your faults early and are willing to tell you, because they recognize something familiar in you. That only works if you're willing to return that friendship, for friendship is not a one-way street. Sometimes your friends are your age, like you all. Sometimes they're double your age, right, Russ? You should inspire those around you through your actions and your presence, not just your words or your LinkedIn posts. Fifth, always, always, always keep your promises. Promises set your North Star. They influence the decisions you make along the way to fulfilling them. They shape how others understand who you are as a person and allow others to develop trust in you. Promises are powerful. Regardless of whether you keep them or break them, they will shape who you become. When Gabby and I were elected, we made one promise to one another, that at the end of this, we would be best friends. As my speech concludes and my tenure with it, I'm proud to say I've kept my end of the promise. Life is long, and at times, unpredictable. And for most of us, it won't be this relatively easy or carefree again. But what awaits us is a rotating door of challenge, uncertainty, joy, hopefully success. So as we consider what the future holds, I'll close my time as your MBA co-president with a quote from Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, shining at the end of every day. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow is just a dream away. Thank you. I now invite Gabby up to speak.
Thanks, y'all. We did it. I come to you with a heart full of gratitude, and I want us all to take a moment to truly cherish this time together. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Thank you for the countless sacrifices it took just to arrive at this day. Thank you for helping make the Fuqua experience a great one for us all. There are a few people I'd like to thank for making it possible to be here today. I first want to thank my parents. Thank you for recognizing the light in me. I am truly a reflection of you. To Demetrius, thank you for introducing me to Fuqua, for giving me the freedom to fly, and for always providing a safe place to land. To my family here today, your presence means everything to me. I don't take lightly what it costs for you to be in that seat. To Ben, my co-president, thank you for keeping our promise to become best friends during this journey. And to the MBA cabinet, thank you for volunteering your time and energy to make Fuqua better for us all. When I sat down to write these remarks, I went down a rabbit hole of YouTube graduation speeches, searching for the right words to borrow, but the more I watched, the more one quote kept rising to the surface. And it wasn't found in any of those videos. It was a piece of wisdom passed down through the generations of the Sims family. From my great-grandfather to my grandfather, from my grandfather to my father, from my father to me, and now to you. I was looking everywhere for the right words, and then I realized I already had them. And the quote is, "You have it in you." That's the Mississippi way of putting it, but in plain terms, it means you have everything you need within inside of yourself. There's no self-help book, no podcast, no coffee chat that can override your intuition and God-given talents. So today, above all else, I want to encourage you to trust yourself. You have it in you. You have the power to go further than those who came before you and to make this world a much better place. Just over 2 years ago, getting to Fuqua was just a dream. With all the testing, the essay revisions, and the interviews, you made that dream a reality. I have no doubt that that same determination will follow you through to your next challenge. You pushed through core classes, some of us seeing this material for the very first time, and with the help of our C-Lead teammates, we mastered it. Shout out to my own team, C-Lead. You navigated recruiting by leaning on each other, sharing resources, and turning every individual offer into a shared celebration. Whatever came our way, and a lot did, the power of Team Fuqua carried us to this finish line because you have it in you and you proved it. Congratulations on this great accomplishment. Thank you for the memories, the laughs, and the late night texts convincing us to make it out to TAB one more time. Whatever the world throws at you, whoever is in office, whatever legislation changes, whichever way the market may swing, you already have it in you to figure it out, adapt, and succeed. So go lead, go build, and be sure to give back to those who come after you. Wherever you go, you have it in you. I leave here knowing that I have it in me, and I hope you leave here knowing the same. Thank you. I'm inviting Corey Pilson to the stage.
So listen, team, I'm not gonna lie, the energy in here hasn't been great so far. And so I wanna try something, maybe bring us back to orientation. So where's section 1 at? All right. Is section 2 in the house? Can I hear you, section 3? Section 4, where you at? Section 5. Now team, my favorite, section 6, where are you at? And I would be remiss if I forgot section 7 for the partners in the room. Actually, let me pull this in. I want to start by saying, Layla, I love you so much. And I know that this has been a tough 2 years, and getting married in business school is not easy. But when you find the right one, you gotta lock her down. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I'm very nervous right now. If you can't see my legs, they're shaking behind this podium. But But the thing that calms my nerves is this overwhelming sense of gratitude. I'm grateful because you all chose me and you trusted me with this moment. And I'm also grateful because we did it, team. And these last 2 years went by quickly, but there were moments that dragged. And the quotes of those moments still ring in my ears. Quotes like, after careful consideration, we'd like to offer you a spot on our wait list. Quotes like, thank you for submitting your application, but we've decided to go in a different direction. Quotes like, no, Corey, that's not how accounting principles work. But sitting next to you all and observing you all in class, seeing you through the lens of my camera, you all inspired me. You all taught me things that helped me become a successful business student, but more importantly, you taught me things that I want to emulate for my life to come. And so it wouldn't be a business school speech if I didn't give y'all 3 points. And so I'm gonna give you 3 observations that I've noticed about this cohort. The first observation is that this is a class of intense focus. When I came to Fuqua, I was focused on making a little bit more money and getting some professional acclaim. And to be honest, I've gotten a little bit of acclaim, but I still have no money to. But observing you all helped me understand my focus differently. I got to work with people who saw academic excellence as the only option. I got to work with people who were on the ground floor of startups, solving problems before and after class. And I got to work with people who were always gonna leave just a little bit early, not because they're slacking, but to make sure that they were home to put their kids to bed. And observing you all helped me understand that my idea of success was empty. And when I got here, I was too worried about locking in, but I wasn't worried enough about what I was locking into. But watching you all helped me realize that I had to focus on things that were a little bit more robust. And now looking ahead, I'm focused on building a good life for me, my wife, and any family that we have to come. I'm focused on being the professional that younger me can look up to. And I'm focused on building a community of support along the way. The second observation I made about this cohort is that you all are very generous. And I think this generosity is our secret sauce. It's the Duke difference, if you will. This cohort is quick to jump in to help. I've watched the way that some of you all tutored others. Shoot, some of y'all have tutored me. I've seen you all set up blood drives for our ailing classmates and set up food trains for our classmates that we're expecting. There were people in this room that made sure every year our housekeeping staff felt seen, heard, and respected. And I watched the way you spent hours mentoring prospective students so they could my fault. I watched the way you spend hours mentoring and building prospective students so that the door that you walk through doesn't close behind you. But this generosity is not limited to you all. It's all through Fuqua. To the professors in the room, thank you for being generous with your time, your knowledge, and thank you for pouring into us and helping us to become the professionals we're meant to be. Also, thank you for your grace, because I know y'all read a lot of AIBS. To the staff in this room, thank you for being generous with your time and energy, and thank you for making sure that every one of us felt like we belonged. And to the support staff that may not be in this room, the people that made sure we ate, the people that made sure our classrooms are clean, the people that make sure our tech works, thank you for all of the work you do, because you all are the foundation to this excellent institution that we're blessed to be at. And to the partners and the families in this room, thank you so much for being generous with your graduates. Because over the last 2 years, there were times where I'm sure we didn't show up at home the way we wanted to, but you stuck with us through it, and we thank you for that. The last observation, and maybe the most important one, is that this is a resilient class. These last 2 years have been tough for all of us. Between market shifts, recruiting uncertainty, personal challenges, classes starting at 8 instead of 9, or 9 instead of 8, and everything else happening in the world, it just feels like sometimes this cohort couldn't catch a break. But I'm gonna be honest with y'all, this is a hard class to keep down. In spite of grief, I watched you all persist. In spite of 2 a.m. automated rejection emails, I watched you all persist. And in spite of uncertain visa status, I watched you all persist. And finding out you're resilient is a hard process. But once you know, you're unstoppable. And I fear for the people that get in the way of this cohort in the future. And it's these 3 qualities that I believe set you apart. And it's these 3 qualities that make me honored to be one of your classmates. And so if you know me, you know I can be pretty cynical about the role of business in the world. And I think a lot about the future. And when I look ahead, I see a world of uncertainty. There's uncertainty in the market for professionals like us. There's uncertainty about how emerging technologies will change our daily lives. And there's uncertainty about the world we're walking into post-business school. But one thing I'm certain about is this class. Because when I look in this room, I see the kind of leaders the world needs. Leaders with the focus to solve hard problems, with the generosity to bring people along the way, and the resilience to keep the work going, even when things get heavy. And so class of 2026, I got a question for you. If you decide to lead, how will the world change? Thank you. My name is Corey Pilson. So, because I'm doing the Fuqua Instagram, we gotta get a selfie team. So, if I can get y'all to just smile and say like, graduation, that would be good. All right, team.
Got it? All right, thank you, Ben, Gabby, and Corey. I invite you to join your classmates when you have a sense. And at this time, thank you all. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you gotta get a selfie, man.
Gotta get a selfie.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's give them a round of applause. You young people with your selfies. No. All right, so at this time, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge 2 members of the Fuqua faculty who earned teaching awards. The awards were presented at our annual awards ceremony on Thursday, but I want to acknowledge them here. So our teaching awards are selected by a student committee, as the students know, so they are truly student choice. And this year, the first teaching award went to Keisha Cutright, who received the award for innovation and teaching in a core class. And then the second is Robert Swinney, who received the award for innovation and teaching in an elective class. So acknowledging those two esteemed faculty, it is now my honor to introduce our 2026 faculty graduation speaker. This year, we are trying something new. We invited our student leadership to choose a faculty member whose voice they most wanted to hear on this important day. Not just as recognition of classroom excellence, but rather really to honor a faculty member whose impact, relevance, and engagement uniquely resonate with this class and this moment. The students this year chose Professor Ronnie Chatterjee, who graciously agreed. Before I bring Ronnie up, I want to note that we hope this is the beginning of a new Fuqua tradition, one in which a member of our faculty has one last chance to speak for all of us, sharing brief words of gratitude, wisdom, and inspiration. No pressure, Ronnie. Before Ronnie begins, please let me say just a few words about his many accomplishments. And I really had to summarize this, because there's a lot. Ronnie has been a member of Fuqua's faculty since 2006. In that time, he has become one of the most distinctive voices at Duke, someone whose influence spans the academy, government, and the private sector. From Cornell undergrad to Goldman Sachs to his PhD studies at UC Berkeley, Ronnie has pursued and exemplified excellence throughout his career. At Fuqua, Ronnie is one of our most celebrated educators and scholars, but his ambition has never been confined to the walls of Fuqua. As a senior economic policy advisor to Presidents Obama and Biden, and most recently as the White House coordinator overseeing the implementation of the $52 billion CHIPS Act, Ronnie has consistently put knowledge in service of society, as is the way of Duke. Ronnie currently serves as the inaugural chief economist of OpenAI, where he studies complex market dynamics and translates them into solutions that are focused on ensuring that the economic benefits of artificial intelligence are as widely distributed as possible. He epitomizes what we mean when we talk about being a leader of consequence, someone who leads with intellect, ethics, and the courage to act. And we are so fortunate to call him our own. Please welcome my friend and colleague, Ronnie Chatterjee.
Well, first I want to say thank you to Dean Mary Frances Luce for her fantastic leadership at the Fuqua School of Business. Mary Fran, you were the associate dean when I first joined Fuqua back in 2006. And when you read that biography, and gosh, that bio is a little over the top. I know it's Mother's Day coming up, but I should not have let my mom write my bio. That's the mistake. Sorry, Mom. But when I think about what I've been able to do in my career, it's because there were administrators and fellow faculty members like Mary Frances who gave me the space, who gave me the confidence, who believed in me from the very beginning. So thank you, Mary Frances, for everything you're doing for the Fuqua School. I do want to embarrass one person who really does not want to be embarrassed. And I hate to do it, but there's just someone whose service to Fuqua is so amazing, has made such a big impact on this university and Fuqua that I have to thank him today. Russ Morgan. When we talk about Team Fuqua, I can't think of anybody who exemplifies it more than Russ Morgan. And Russ is retiring. This is his last graduation on the faculty. And Russ, I know it was your dream to fill Cameron with your basketball talents, but you're much better as an administrator, as a leader, as a researcher, and as a friend. So thank you, Russ, for everything you've done. Now on to the class of 2026. How you feeling? That's pretty good. I like it. I got a lot of advice preparing for this speech. And you can get a little nervous. I mean, this place is packed. You're worried. Are you going to have feedback with the microphone? For me, am I talking too fast? Philip, you're in the audience to remind me to slow down, okay? And there are so many people here who have mentored me over my career, and so many people here in the audience that I've worked with as well. So I got a few pieces of advice coming in. The first piece of advice was from my big sister, who's always given me like the straight shooting. She said, nobody really cares about a commencement speaker anyway. The expectations are pretty low. People are here mostly for their friends and their family, so don't sweat it. That was a good piece of advice, made me a little less nervous. I have a woman on my team who just graduated with her MBA at OpenAI, and she's my chief of staff. I go to her for a lot of questions. I asked her, hey, what do you think about this graduation speech? And she said, frankly, most of them are going to be so hungover, it doesn't matter what you say. As I was thinking about that advice and how to prepare, I was watching y'all come in and seeing the friends, the family, celebrating you, clapping for you. And I realized what I always realize at these events in Duke, in Fuqua, in the spring, with this beautiful weather, with these beautiful facilities. It's not about me. It's not about what I'm going to say. It's about you, your accomplishments, your family, the love, the energy you have today. It is a reminder always what really matters in life. My family was going to be here to watch me today, but my kiddos needed to be at home for a variety of reasons, but they're watching on the live stream. And I told them that I would say a few things. I would leave a few Easter eggs in this speech for them as well. And I'll try to call those out as I go through, because when I talk to the class of 2026, I feel like I'm not just talking to this class, I'm talking to all the people who are going to come through these halls after you. Now, I know you have one burning question that I really should have addressed up front. One question that I should have answered definitively that you really need to know the answer to right now. Did I use ChatGPT to write this speech? Am I right? That's kind of the question, right? And I am speaking in my capacity as a Duke University professor, but of course, as the chief economist of OpenAI, someone who uses the tools all the time, you're wondering, Ronnie, why'd you ask your sister? Why'd you ask your chief of staff? Why didn't you just ask ChatGPT to write your whole speech? I'm gonna keep you in suspense for a little bit. I'm gonna tell you what I did a little bit later. But I wanna start at the beginning. Who remembers leading business in a complex world? By the way, family and friends, this is a good ratio. When people actually remember something 2 years ago, this is amazing. This was our introductory class during orientation, August 2024. Our daytime MBAs, our accelerated MBAs sat in Janine Auditorium, and I had the honor of being your first speaker on that day, for those who remember it. And now I have this amazing opportunity to sort of be the bookends of your experience, the person who started it and the person who's gonna bring it home. And I think about what I was talking about in those days and what has happened in between those bookends. Right after orientation, you went to the preterm and eventually to term 1. You had accounting, you had econ, you had stats. That's a tough term for people who are paying attention at home. That is one of the most quantitatively rigorous terms that you can have at any business school. But the great thing is that so many of your professors, and many of them are behind me today, they're not just fantastic researchers. They're empathetic individuals. They've been doing this before, and they made sure it actually cared about you learning. And so when you step into that first job, many of you are going to tech, consulting, finance, those quantitative skills that you learned in that first term at Fuqua are going to be a foundation for you to do the work of the future. Many of us are going to have what's called imposter syndrome, this idea that we don't belong. Those first few classes at Fuqua, those 3 core classes that you took in term 1, lean on them, reflect on your notes, talk to your C-lead teams. I feel like that is one way that you're going to be able to thrive and hit the ground running at your first job, reflecting on that term 1. But when you went to term 2, it got a little more complicated. I used to teach in that term for many years. You usually have strategy, marketing, and finance. But you also have, much to the chagrin of your professors who want you to show up for class and be prepared, your coffee chats, your flights up to New York for informational interviews, your flights back to New York for the first round, your flights again to New York for the final round. There's only 12 classes in the term. So it's very difficult to balance all the different commitments that you have in term 2. But at the same time, as someone who taught strategy here for 15 years, you really need to know that stuff. And I remember the push and pull when I was teaching in that term between wanting to make sure that you had that knowledge, those foundational skills that help you be a more effective consultant or financier or tech executive, but knowing that you had to get a job to begin with to make it all happen. That term is really when you learned how to balance work and life. You had this quantitative skill set. Now you were directing it towards solving problems in the world that didn't have easy answers. And when you think about what you're getting paid for, why you got hired, where you got hired, why you're gonna do the job you're doing, it's because they're gonna pay you to answer the questions that can't be solved in a spreadsheet or by Codex or another tool that I'm not gonna mention. Think about all the exams, the projects, the team meetings, Fuqua Fridays. Take a beat and just think how you felt during that day. I felt like our student speakers captured this so well. It is so easy to assume that this was the outcome, to assume that you would be here. Take a beat and think about the uncertainty that you felt that day and savor this moment. Enjoy this moment. You have accomplished so much. And if you don't reflect on those victories, if you don't celebrate yourself and your families and your friends in these moments, you're gonna miss something really important. Now, 2 years ago when I was on stage in Janine, I might have sounded a little bit crazy. I talked about AI, I talked about quantum, I talked about synthetic biology, I talked about changes in geopolitics that seemed very far-fetched at the time that would change what it meant to be a business leader. And I also made some predictions about how much the world would change in the next 2 years. I told you you'd be leading businesses in a world where the playbook had radically changed. We talked about the relationship between the private sector and the public sector being reshaped in a way you could never imagine, in part because of novel technologies like generative artificial intelligence. ChatGPT and the AI chatbots were still relatively new when you started business school, if you think about it. And I told you that the capabilities in your hands, in your phones, in your laptops was the worst it would ever be. And by the time you graduated, you were going to be amazed about the capabilities of these technologies. I told you that business education was going to have to change. When you think about AI, when you think about quantum, when you think about synthetic biology, these technologies are fundamentally different than the technologies that came before them. The era I grew up in was the software era. Software ate the world. But these technologies require multiple scientific breakthroughs, huge investments in infrastructure like data centers and computer chips. And they rely on scaling laws, which means that the more compute we put in, the smarter the machines get. You all have realized after 2 years of foundational business education, that's a different playbook for leadership. That's a different playbook for the economy. And I wanted to prepare you for that. Many of you are going into tech, and you are going to work for firms that are at the center of the deep tech revolution. Companies that you thought a few years ago were in consumer technology are now doubling down on AI and deep tech. Companies that you thought were all about consumers are now also B2B. And companies that you thought never had to worry about where their energy supply was coming from, how the grid was supported, how interconnection worked, are now investing in massive energy projects all around the world. That's what's changed just in 2 years. If you think about it from the balance sheet perspective, for our finance folks, The balance sheets of these firms that are hiring you now, particularly the publicly traded companies, are in a completely different place than they were when you started. We're in a capital expenditure super cycle where the massive amount of investments going into infrastructure. As you think about the typical career path for a Fuqua grad in tech, it's a very different path than you would have started 2 years ago because the companies you're working for have completely changed their business models. Now, that also goes into finance. In the software revolution, a small amount of money could fund a couple engineers to build a software product, and that software product could scale. That was the story of SaaS. But deep tech, AI, quantum, it's different. You need massive pools of capital to invest in infrastructure. You need different assumptions around rate of returns. You need different balance sheet and off-balance sheet mechanisms to fund these huge projects. So if you're going to VC, to PE, to hedge funds, this means you're going to have to think completely differently. If you're going to one of the investment banks that's going to usher in this amazing new era of IPOs, you've got to think differently about the fundamentals. What's the right metric for an AI lab in terms of its performance? When SaaS, software as a service, came out, we had to invent entirely new metrics to measure how to think about their business performance. And if you're in finance today and tomorrow, your career is going to have to change as well. And many of you are also going into consulting. And if you think about the technology leaders, the financiers, they're going to need a whole different set of advice. Your leverage ratio at one of the consulting firms might be 1 to 7, 1 to 8. You're now using AI tools to do more with less. But a consultant can't just understand one part of the stack. If you've gone through Fuqua, if you've taken your core and elective classes, you need to figure out everything from where the electrons are coming from to how it's affecting a manager's ability to make her workforce more productive. That entire stack in between it, which includes data centers, GPUs and CPUs and memory chips, interconnection, training foundation models, inference from those models, vertical applications in finance, healthcare, and tech, and finally how to measure return on investment inside the enterprise. I know that you're nervous, but I also want to say that you're early. You're early. You have a chance to get in on the ground floor of this revolution. And if you're in technology or finance or consulting, I see this every day. You're going to be able to define the metrics. You're going to be able to define the organizations that are going to dominate the new era. And that's why I'm really excited about the careers you're going into. A lot of our friends here also have nonprofit and government careers. Well, the role of government and nonprofits is going to change a lot as well. There's so much concern about the impact that AI in particular is going to have on the job market, what it's going to mean to the future of work and employment. Government's going to have to completely reconceptualize its role if we see massive disruption in the job market. Nonprofits are going to have to figure out how to do retraining at scale as we think about channeling workers from one industry, one sector to another. I think you're prepared. As Gabby said, I think you have it in you. But the key issue here is, can you rely on what you learned at Fuqua, not just for your next job, but for your last job? So much of business school and so much of why you come here, and Ben talked about this as well, is about that next job, about getting a little bit more income, a little bit higher position. But I also want you to reflect on your education as being for your last job. I'm sitting here in a job I never thought I would have. I describe it as like the coolest job in the world. I never could have trained in my PhD or my teaching at Fuqua or my work in government for the job I have now. And I feel like an imposter. I feel not good enough. I feel like I'm not up to the task every single day. The questions are too big. Their challenging answers are hard to say. And I don't have all the data I would need to make the judgments that I need to do. But I'm in this position for a reason. And I hope when you find that job, it might be your last job, it could be your next job, where you have the widest sphere of influence, where you can affect the most people, where you're in the organization that's scaled to the max, that you can look back on your Fuqua training and it will serve you well. For me as a faculty member here, about 20 years as I look back at it, that's the way I feel today at OpenAI. So we got a few things right back in 2024, but we've seen these massive shifts in US politics and new geopolitical crises around the world. it's introduced mass uncertainty into the global economy. But the US economy is pretty resilient. Unemployment rate is below 5%, GDP growth at 2%. So we are nervous and uncertain about starting your careers at this time because the metrics are pointing all different directions. Sometimes I read the headlines, and I look at consumer sentiment, and then I look at the economic indices, and I can't figure out what the mismatch is. And if I, as an economist of over 20 years, has that problem, I can imagine how it feels for you. We're entering this new era of global competition that also makes us feel much more nervous. Superpower rivalry and the middle powers that I call swing states, countries that are using AI and new technologies to jump up the global pecking order, all racing to control this new technology before their rivals do. I want to also note that the military is also taking a strong interest in new technologies. And I will just say we have so many service members, active duty, and veterans among our Fuqua community who are keeping us safe. I do want to recognize them now, both in the audience and here at home. Thank you so much. For our veterans who are graduating, your experience with your public sector mission, plus your knowledge of new technology and management, is going to make you indispensable in these organizations. Whenever I see our graduates come out and I see our veterans and how successful they are in the job market, I know we're doing Team Fuqua the right way. So thank you for being part of this community. So it's okay for all of us to be nervous. I'm nervous too. That's not a weakness, it's just awareness. But I also see a lot of opportunity. Entrepreneurship is rising, organizations are being transformed, industries are being reshaped, and like I said, you are early. And each of you has some agency, some ability to take risks, and a whole bunch of support from Team Fuqua, your family, your friends, to make big bets and try to seize those opportunities. You've learned so much here at Fuqua that's going to help you in this next stage of career. I want to reflect on those lessons as you encounter challenging times. First, I want to talk about teams. I'm working now on one of the highest performance teams that I've ever been a part of. That doesn't mean my work is easy, but every day I look around and I just count my blessings for being able to work with such great people who are basically the specialists and the expert at their position on the floor. I do sort of feel like John Shire sometimes. Every position, 1 to 5, everybody on the bench is the best in the world. That won't last forever. That team won't last forever. I won't be on that team forever. But if you find yourself on that kind of team, now or later, please lean in. Please take every opportunity you can. Don't take it for granted. Teams are hard to build, and sometimes we lose them more quickly than we want. Savor those big victories with your team. I heard a rumor that we had a big victory this year with the Blue Cup. Is that true? After a 2-year drought, ladies and gentlemen, Team Fuqua brought home the Blue Cup, and hopefully it's the beginning of another dynasty. Congratulations to you guys on that. I also want to say, so many of you asked that question, am I ready? Am I ready for the job market? Okay, I'm like an older guy who works with a bunch of 25-year-olds. And the question should be, are we ready for you? If you look at the number of emojis and memes that I do not understand on the Slack and OpenAI, I'm trying to keep up with y'all, not the other way around. This is the generation that's going to shape the vibes. I use that word because younger people use it. You're going to shape the vibes in the organization. I'm still trying to figure out whether wearing a hoodie to work makes me cool or not cool. But for you, you're going to know exactly what to wear to work. You're going to exactly understand the vibes of the organization. You're going to dictate that. And I hope that you won't just inherit culture, you're going to shape it at the organizations that you're at too. That's really, really important to remember as too. And there's going to be struggle as well. Recently, I had a challenge where I leaned out and reached out to somebody, and they told me something really good. They redefined the word resilience for me. Everyone's heard that word. I sort of thought the definition of resilience was powering through difficult times, relying on yourself. And what this person told me, and I really believe is true, resilience is about asking for help. Resilience is about knowing when to ask for help. Resilience is about having the network of people, your team, to ask for help. Hearing those words on a word that I thought I knew, but I really didn't understand, changed my perspective over the last year. And I hope that for you all, the resilience you've built at Fuqua, your team is gonna carry you through those difficult times. There are so many of you who've had like the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. One group that I resonate a lot with is our international students. My dad was a foreign student. He came to the United States in 1961 because somebody took a chance on him and created a pathway for him to come to this country. It's the reason I'm here today. And so I think about our international students. I know there's been a lot of ups and downs, things you can't control. We see you, we value you, and Team Fuqua is stronger because of you. Thank you to the international students. You guys are amazing. So I promised I'd get to the burning question at the end. I know some people are sort of impatient. They're like, all right, okay, I got all that other stuff. Did you use ChatGPT to write this speech? No. I did have help from a different kind of assistant, though. We all need help when we're writing these speeches. We all need help to manage the nerves. We all need help to think about what you could say profoundly to such a large and educated audience. But my assistants are not named ChatGPT. They're named Harrison, Philip, Mac, Tess, Belton. These are my assistants in the crowd here. The best lines in this speech came from them, not AI. And why did I do it that way? I could have done it a lot quicker. You know, I got off a red-eye plane this morning thinking, oh my gosh, am I gonna be able to stand up here without much coffee and deliver this speech? It would have been a lot easier with AI. It could have been more smooth, it could have been more memorable. The jokes probably would have been a lot funnier. I would have paused a little bit on the M dashes that always show up and spoke a little slower. That's only the ChatGPT people who really get that. It's all right. But I'm glad I did it this way. I'm glad I did it this way. Just because AI can do something doesn't mean we need to let it do that thing. That's a really important lesson. We don't need to give up the things that we enjoy. And for me, I enjoy writing, I enjoy thinking, I enjoy interacting with my current and now former students about their ideas. And this trade-off between what we want machines to do and what we want to do ourselves, I think it's gonna be the biggest challenge for society during the intelligence age, and it's gonna be the biggest challenge of your careers. When you come back for your 25th reunion, I'm gonna ask you that question. How do you decide what to let humans do and what to let the increasingly smart machines do? As the machines get smarter, we ought to become more human somehow. We ought to value humans more. We ought to take care of humans more. And that's where I wanna go, even though it won't be easy. Empathy, fellowship, leadership, judgment, these aren't just like old-fashioned terms of some bygone era. I actually think they might be the competitive advantage of the intelligence age. Because choosing to be human and choosing to take care of humans, it's why I'm betting on Fuqua. When I came here, I didn't really understand if Team Fuqua was real when I was a young assistant professor. And over time, seeing you all come through, seeing the alumni, I started to understand that it's real and it's about a collection of humans. And somehow in this AI era, somehow when everything is changing, I think choosing to be human is going to be a competitive advantage. Now, our education is designed here to build and support humans who are trying to make a difference in the business world. And as one of our speakers said, it's okay to be cynical sometimes about the power of business. But there's also a lot to be optimistic about in terms of being able to create tremendous value for your consumers, your employees, and the world. I think better humans are going to make better decisions. I think they're going to be better friends. I think they're going to be better teammates. I think they're going to be better leaders. These are things that machines cannot compete with, even as capabilities advance and the curve moves upward and to the right. This is why businesses, in my view, are going to need a lot of machines and a lot of humans. Team Fuqua is an amazing collection of humans who are going to make the world a better place. And I think that's as true in 2026 as it ever was before. So to the class of 2026, congratulations on all you've achieved. Our hopes and our dreams of everyone in this auditorium rest on you to build better businesses and a better world for all humans. Thank you.
On behalf of the class, we thank you, Ronnie, for those insightful and inspiring thoughts. We give him a small gift on behalf of Fuqua. And now, it's my honor to invite Steve Misuraca to the stage.
Congrats to the Fuqua Scholars for the Daytime and AMA class of 2026. Fuqua Scholars are those students whose grade point average places them in the top 10% of the graduating class. We have acknowledged this distinction in your program. Fuqua Scholars, please stand and be recognized. So I promised myself I would stick to the script, but I'm going to go off script for a little bit. We had one 4.0 this year. Dan, stand up. That's really hard to do, right? It also gives me great joy to recognize this incredible group of second-year award winners. We recognize this Thursday. That's Club of the Year, the Breeden Award, Dean's Recognition Award, Leadership, Service, Mentorship, and Team Fuqua Award recipients. We've also designated these awards in your program. Second-year award winners, please stand and be recognized. So now it's the time that we've all been waiting for to individually recognize our graduates. Mary Fran, would you please step forward to congratulate these amazing students? Now I'd like to ask Angus Bowers to please come forward and read the names of our graduating MBA students.
Benjamin Peace. Gabrielle Sims. Corey Pilson. Yanpei Hui. Jessica Liu. Valerie Francis Chella.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Mengnan Lee. John Hudson Alarcon. Ritwik Chatterjee. Renee T. Lin. Rafael Okila Mine. Akansha Balaji. Harichandana Minampati. Juliana Beninei de Almeida. Javier Chavez. João Alencar. Morgan Blackwell. Nathan Blackwell. Halima Abbasi. John Houston Blackburn. Evan Gerald Barr. Gavin Gregory Brown. Ovni Bully. Marina Bobov. Tejiri El Benitier Cassidy. Aaliyah Ashley Brown. Nilesh Basu Roy. Akshara Bassi. Ashish Aurora. Isadora Bedard. Sofia Bahamondes Lopez. Francesco Baldassare Machiavello. Ursula Daniela Chavez. Mark Bradford Ankerholz. Alexander Ryan Black. Alize Afzal. Olivia Helen Siro. Colette Yone Arake. Camille Bougain. Tiago Boncristiano. Catherine Aiton. Anna Grace Batchab. Samuel John Carter. Surabhi Agarwal. Sharada Sitaraman Basavanahali. Manan Vipul Bhavsar. Pratik Ponta. Shriya Bopanna. Kellyanne Castro Blanco. Eating Chun. Nicholas Scott Anderson. Steve Albright. Aulia Natasha Irfani Ampri. Harrison Alim. Yazid M. Al-Suhaibani. Kartik Chendika. Sambhavi Belavi. Mariana Caballero. Marisela del Carmen Castillo Granda. Kathleen Grace Barrow. Ryan Daniel Bird. Matthew John Brooks. Kasim Armando Camilo. Michelle Barhumi. Sergio Butrich Cisneros. Siraj Raed Al Ramahi I. Paola Caprio de Siman. Abdullah Hud. Christopher Stephen Branton. Daniela Abisambra Suarez. Federico Bejarano Rojas. Mohit Chandal. Michael R. Brennan. Keller Balsam. Allison Buzelli. Danny Chow. Tyler Carlton. Adeshola Alartishe. Rebecca Ayomikun Bakare. Toluwalase Oluwadamolilola Ayini. Alexander Danki Arsare. Paige Nicole Cheatham. Ariana Simone Boyd. Kwadjo Tufor Asumin. Patrick Botchway. David Jacobs. Maxwell Obregon Goldberg. Jonathan Lewis Fust. Hannah Whitall Hopkins. Margaret Maria Dunn. Madalena Collins. Christopher Fisher. Philip Cole. Wei Han Chiu. Carlos Ignacio Correa Luarte. Tomás Javier Fuensalida Cruz. Camila Vieira Gasillo. Felipe González Kawamura. Robert Whitner Fanning. Luis Gomez. John J. Deering. Kalia Garvin. Justin Ferguson. Eleanor Rie de Marais. Mary Abigail Givens. Taylor Gebhardt. Christopher Alexander Foster. Daniel Martin Crayer. Margaret Elizabeth Girton. Rucha Gaudry. Melati Aurora Devi. Jennifer Choi. Isabel Louise Dow. Tiffany Rachel Daly. Sean Palmer Egan. Georgina Celeste Espinosa. Dumale Okwasua Agin Davis. Tess Gardef. Juan Diego Curicinche Castro. Fernando Daniel Gajate Soler. Julian Gomez. Elias Garcia. Mario Espinosa de los Reyes Ares. Jason Doan. Cristoforo Coppola. Okay. Abraham Cohen. KK Genio. Ohana Das. Pradeep Epan Matthew. Deepjyoti Das. Siddharth Dami Reddy. Jignesh Chaudhary. Mitchell Austin Cotton Gilliam. Yeji Choi. Charles Andreas Cunningham. AJ Forshey. Gustavo Felipe Infante Diaz. Belén Corbera Vizcara. Elizabeth Yang Doikin. Suzette Andrea Gaynor. Shannon Jacqueline Duffy. Amanda Brown Coombs. Dax Ramon Craig Jr. Sung Wook Cho. Chun Fu. Justin Du. Elliot David Digby Jones. Elijah Mark Contreras. Che Garcia. Rohit Joseph Fonseca. Julia Sarah Forte. April Rose Gibbs. Jane DiGregorio. Elise Catherine Heddens. Ellis Vogt. Jamie Champa. Ursula Ariane Bey. Makor Ajoa Gudni. Sarah M. Fanny. Ebony Ezeji. Okay. Ayomikum Farlade. Daniel Tirtir Bibi. Bearbeam, excuse me. Danielle Chafan Gore. Naoto Kawakami. Thomas Alexis Herrera. Nicholas James Fajardo. Arshkan Kalyani. Ryan Thomas Heim. Francisco Jose Grigurina Palma. Ignacio Iriart Sosa. Ana Cristina Hernandez. Shizaz Hanan. Brooke Kumar. Benjamin Hicks. Sebastián Octavio Jara Castillo. Andrew Kaplan. Tyler Frederick Johnson. Benedict Aaron Achim Krob. John Britton Harding. Paige Kelly. Alonzo Jones Jr. William Radcliffe Nibbs. Noah Kuranga. Jonathan Burgess Joyner. Pierre-Olivier Guillaume Tournière. Marissa Rose Clay. Lisa Marie Heine. Sydney Elizabeth Gruby. Rebecca Laura Hurwitz. Ken Hasegawa. Brett Izo. Miguel Ibanez Guerrero. Arihaim Katzman Ryder. Tanvi Krishna. Bhumika Gupta. Tanya Kumar. Nicole Marie Herrera. Pranav Guntampuli. Harini Ila Murugu. Cornell P. Jordan. Aditi Patel Jackson. Haley Gustafson. Eliza Coy Harrison. Faith Anika Hon. Audrey Surya Prameswari Korisma. Jiaqi Jiang. Wei Ting Huang. Shi He. Xin Yi Huang. Jack Gordon Holcamp. Cody Jacob Hasty. Whitney Golden Murray Kennigschnitt. Priyansh Goyal. Oops. Chang-hee Han. Ankit Gupta. Kyle William Clapperich. Kazunori Koba. Craig Elisha Laron. Alyssa Raquel Enriquez. Devery Bernard Hamilton Jr. Jordan Frank Gross. Ryan Thomas Gallagher. Seneca Q. Griffin. Joshua David Heapner. Sydney Claire Hausman. Meredith Gosnell. Hyun Ji Kim. Anmar Jurgis. Pati Fatou Kamara. Olaitan Jimo. Oluwafun Milola Wonse Bolatan James. Bautista Mihura. Matias Mora Caris. Francisca Lagos Levrini. Casey Ray O'Connell. Kelly Keegan O'Keefe. Eduardo Lizarraga Balbuena. Martin Montoro Yasila. Israel Maziero. Rolando Lopez Chavez. Gokul Nair. Kylie Mann. Brian Lopez. Juan Carlos Ochoa. Edward David McLean. Edwin Belton Moore. Margaret Michelle. Lauren Haviland O'Brien. Claire O'Neill Lynch. Erica Siobhan Marshburn. Rebecca Oskis. Michelle Marot. Sebastian Munoz. Carolina León. Tirashi Nyabupi Nginza. Okay. Meghna Madala. Suman Murthy. Philippus Arnaldus Marx. Nazreen Nazir. Morgan Elizabeth Leeson. Nala Munji. Caleb Mark Neal. Tyler Charles O'Boyle. Kendall Naveau. Rebecca Nickman. Nicole Intimade. Owen Patrick Monsino. Mateo Martinez Ledesma. James Christopher Mason. Boris Lee. Anita Belen Novoa Altamirano. Isabel Cristina Mendoza. Marilena Oma. Hayri Lee. Juan Pablo Martínez Alfonso. Jennifer Antonia Lawrence. Parth Mittal. Ryan Hendry McKenzie. Jacob Andrew Moses. Adedapo Adeposi Odusami. Kalen Macaluso. Yeah. Sydney McAuliffe Cunningham. Elizabeth Nana Oye Okaili Okai. Pernessa D. Lowry. Chinedu Okeke. Ileli. Jiesulu. Yu Annie Mung. Jordan Zachary Laboda. Santosh Kumar Munisamy. Alexander Matthew Min Nguyen. Francisco Antonio Martinez. Daniel Allen Norman. Omer Lieberman. Omri Lavion. Zoe Takunda Mungu. Jide Ojo. Aniadi Ojo. Chidinma Obode. Rum e oavo re overler. Utipe Dov Obat. Francis Gamby Sessenbrenner. Catherine Claire Pierce. Leonardo Nascimento Parmigiani. Carolina Serpa Faria. Luis Casius. Rodrigo Lechi Rocha. Fabiola Paredes Tarazona. Laura Ramon Suvarchi. Laisa Hosha Price. Ogechi Onuku. Eunice Oluwadoyin Sola Peters. Oliver Overhoy. Walter Ruben Ortiz. Andrew Joseph Polos. Harrison Alexander Satcher. Mirinalini Shah. Bradley Scott Romig. Rebecca Shar. Stephanie Pett. Deepika Pangakar. Avery Bryn Weekly. Sarah Suzanne Renfro. Kaylin Raby. David Hill Robinson. Andrew Prieto. Hannah Ray Sheridan. Andres Ivan Plazas. Juan Pablo Parra Rodriguez. Mudita Shobhan Savai. Prashasti Rohotki. Ketana Sandil. Margarita Petrova. Apeksha Singh. Deidre Ann Russell. Samantha Jean Cedar. Sadie Louise Tetrolds. Elizabeth Margaret Scott. Laura Rafferty. Samantha Lowe. Vanshika Saraf. Whitney Lynn Pike. Jordana Road. Emily Elizabeth Ratliff. Sono Porab. Ruchin Raj. Sanya Shakil. Kartik Krishnamurti Sastri. Cameron Marcus Sheffield. Sally Spencer Sandoval. Hana Oluwamayowa Osinowo. Jordan Alexander Reese. Caleb Ruffin. Adebayo O. Oshinusi. Samantha Christine Roach. Dahlia Rice Wasserman. Ricardo Romero Gomez. Pepe Rodriguez Gonzalez. Cristiano Ronaldo Rui Flores. Alexandra Retamoso. Sang Woo Park. Bayak Nongapad Biya Cho Sugit. Sujong Park. Christopher Efani Opara Jr. Harini Ravi Krushni. Gautam Krishna Prem Sundar. Rebecca Ann Paran. Tori Kim. Anish Ranjamanikam. Tyler Conklin Patrick. Ning Chu. Ji Qing. Paul Wagner. Matthew Joseph Yanchek. Sebastian Vrika. Vinicius Ushima. Amanda Vieira Di Mello. Arthur Correa Silva. Roger Piero Vinelli Otoya. Daniel Strook. Renzo Paolo Tangerlini Soriano. Audrey Wong. Leah Strasberg. Catherine Grace Rose Ziegler. Lauren Marie Sterling Collins. Amber Hoffman Tilley. Jacqueline Young. Nicholas Summer. Jorge Luis Siman Bahaya. Sabari Gires Subramanian. Vidya Sivamara Krishnan. Parth Singh. Kuru Varadi. Kyle Christopher Damian Wolf. Kendall Trudeau. Kayla Amanda Taylor. Ata Kakayev. Dimitrios Dimos Tentomas. Rebecca Tummers. Alida van der Eems. Isabel van Seilen. Haley Turner. Taylor Truex. Jonathan Valdez. Bianca Celeste Valladares. Steve Michael Valladares Galeas. Gil Vasquez. Evelise Vargas. Janelle Sherry Williams. Rudri Raju Visyavraju. Tapan Wadhwa. Vidisha Yadav. Taylor Walicki. Abigail Weber. Kristen Presley West. Catherine Crystal Wong. Sumyukta Warrior. Kaylee Catherine Mai Tobin. Olivia Rose Termini. Noah Toder. Merritt Vangro. Catherine Ini Chu. Vinay Venkateswaran. UC Wong. Xinyan Yu. Jan Yu Zhou. Ayush Vats. Ryan Daniel Young. Oderachukwu Ugwu. Sumin Zhang. Yichao Wang. Sophie Yu. Jacqueline Wittich. Amber Jaleesa Wright. Si Young. Puyu Young. Okay. Licia Vergara. Ryan Sadawi. Madan Venkatesh. Bo Wright. Quadri Abolaji Salami. Anna Loretta Walsh. Ogeneru Ne Ortu Polo. Teniola Taylor. Suliman Bapatunde Suliman.
Okay. Making sure. All right. Graduates, will you please stand so we can congratulate you one or two more times? And then everybody, friends, family, staff, faculty. Oh, so I'm letting the last people get to the photo booth was really popular. I'll let it. So anyway, all right, everybody here, please join me in congratulating the graduating class of 2026 of Duke's Fuqua School of Business. Let's give them a round of applause. Woo! So to our graduates, today marks a transition. Whereas yesterday you called yourself a Fuqua student, today you are a Fuqua alumnus, a change that comes with untold opportunities. What distinguishes a Fuqua graduate is their intelligence, yes, but more than that, it's their decency and their instinct to bring others along. You know it when you see it, and the world needs more of it. You have now joined a network of over 30,000 Fuqua alumni, and we are proud to be the business school community that genuinely shows up for each other. Across years and career changes in countries and cities all over the world, they will be there for you. They're on your team now, too. You have now also become a part of the Duke alumni community. The rigor of a Duke education speaks volumes about your ambition and capabilities, and the connections that you make with fellow alumni will nurture your personal, professional, and intellectual relationships for years to come. And one day in the not too distant future, someone who is sitting where you do now may come to you for advice, mentorship, or friendship. And as someone who's walked that same path, we hope you will support each other and those to come along the way. What will distinguish you in your personal and professional life isn't only what you've learned at Fuqua, but how you've learned to think analytically, collaboratively, and ethically. Continue to seek out different perspectives as you've encountered here. We truly hope that you stay connected to Fuqua. Our institution is made better by the person you are becoming, and we predict you'll make remarkable impact outside of these walls. And we really hope that you'll come back and tell us about it. You may have completed your formal education, but your pursuit of knowledge should never end. Be bold in your thinking, thoughtful in your leadership, and confident in your vision. Thank you again to our speaker, Ronnie Chatterjee. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and time with us. And one more time, congratulations to the class of 2026. You did it! Woo! I will now ask friends and family to remain in your seats until our faculty and then our faculty and staff, and then our graduates have recessed out of the auditorium. Immediately after the ceremony, you are all invited to join us in a celebration honoring the class of 2026 with food and beverages throughout the Fuqua building. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and congratulations one more time to the class of 2026.
you.